Welcome. I'm Kathleen. And as a whole, we are the Gentle Passage Doula Collective. We're only missing one founding member today, Kathy, who had a previous commitment. And collectively, we have over 80 years of experience in nursing, social work, nutrition, coaching, education, and training. Um, we're a group of committed end-of-life healthcare professionals. We're all certified end-of-life doulas, and our mission and vision really is dedicating energy to educate and support people so that we can have more peaceful death experiences and exceptional end-of-life care, supportive and exceptional end-of-life care. And we really want to see an end-of-life death doula in every single care facility, and we want it to become a household name. So hospices, palliative care, and home care agencies, senior care living facilities, and really imagine a world where it wasn't so scary and it wasn't taboo to talk about death and dying. And it wasn't taboo to get your affairs in order and to be thinking about your legacy while you're alive and to be in alignment with your values while you're alive and making sure that it's all lined up in the end too. And so I want to just say that most people who sign up for our training, and we've been together since before the pandemic, and that's actually when the doula training started to become more widely available. They weren't super popular. A lot of people hadn't heard of an end of life or death doula at the time. And we then, just like everybody with COVID, we couldn't go anywhere and be bedside. So we took it online. We do a lot of virtual events online. And what we all had in common, and what most of our graduates say, and people who are interested in the program, is they're not quite sure why, but they have a calling, or it seems to really fit with what they're already doing, or they had an in-depth experience for themselves, or they're curious for themselves as a caregiver or somebody who has chronic illness. So we have all kinds of people who are interested, but I would say that the most common response is, I have a calling. I just know I need to do this. So welcome, happy to have you here. And I'm going to hand this off to Colleen.
Thank you, Kathleen. So my name is Colleen Hughes, and I am an end-of-life doula and a conscious dying educator. I'm also a registered nurse. And when I look at this phrase, which I love by Ram Dass, which is misspelled on this slide, it's DASS. Um, it's a quote that he, as a spiritual teacher, and he's an author, suggests that the journey of life we're all on is interconnected. We're all interconnected, and we support each other along this journey as we navigate our world, ourselves through this world. So it's talking about coming home and coming home inside of ourselves and finding our wholeness and our humanity and knowing who we are at the deepest level and most profound levels of our being and building our lives on that foundation. And part of this knowing ourselves at the deepest level as an end of life doula, we have to do some really deep diving into our values and what we think about death and our own dying before we really can reach out to other people. Many of us, and I've been included in that, even as an RN, we're just snorkeling around, but not really looking in within ourselves. And that is the challenge. So each person I meet is walking each other home. That's how I see people in my life and humanity in general. We are all teachers for each other. And as I look at myself as an infant in my parents' arms, uh, I am born, but it also means I will die. You
Mhm.
know, the minute we're born, we are dying. And they were walking me home in my early years, just starting me out. So in my adulthood, my father was dying and he wanted to go outside and see his garden for the last time, his rose bushes. And as I watched him and supported him through this, he was just gently touching each plant and each flower. And it was like he was saying goodbye. Um, but in essence, I was walking him home, but he was also teaching me something and walking me home. And we fast forward it to 5 years later, my mother is dying, and she's dying in a freestanding hospice. And my sister and I were by her side as she took her last breath. And her body afterwards was prepared by the staff. We could stay as long as we wanted with her. There was no rush. And afterwards, the staff prepared her body. They put flower petals around it. They put a beautiful quilt over her, but leaving her head uncovered. And as my sister and I walked her down the hall, there was electric candlelights illuminating the hallway on both sides. And we were walking her home. And she was teaching us about that walk. So we can go to the next slide. So normalizing talk about death and dying. My one of my areas of nursing is psychiatric mental health nursing. The other one is gerontology. And I have to say, personally, I think that most people are in therapy, whatever kind of therapy, because they really have an underlying fear of death. In fact, that idea was floated by me by several people along the way in my education. But then you have to feel sorry for death because death, if he's laying on the couch or she, everybody hates me. And it's true because in our culture, we tend to turn away from the discussion on death and dying. So it's not others find it not a very safe topic. And yet people who are used to talking about death find it to be a safe topic. And we listen to other people's stories. So we all know that we have this fear because none of us have ever done this before, but we're all going to die someday. And death is a natural part of life. The birth and death are like bookends of our life. And so preparing for death can be one of the most healing and affirming acts that we ever do in our lifetime. And there's a story about a nurse who tells this tell who tells the nurse tells this story about a woman she saw coming into a treatment for chemotherapy. And the woman did not appear to be aware that she was dying, that she had end of life symptoms. And so this was really perplexing for this nurse who was watching. And she asked her colleague, she says, this woman doesn't even know that she's going to be dying. She has end of life symptoms. And the nurse answered her colleague and she just said, well, we have one doctor who's good at talking with their patients about death and one who isn't. And so, with that, she quit nursing shortly afterwards and she wrote the book of Love Your Life to Death. Next slide, please. So, dying is a community event, really. It's really not a medical event. Barbara Carnes, who's a well-known, internationally renowned nurse and a hospice nurse, she has a big company called BK, Barbara Carnes. She's written many pamphlets and books on death and dying that are distributed worldwide in doctors' offices, social work, throughout um, hospice, palliative care, even in skilled nursing. So her books are everywhere. Her pamphlets are very straightforward, very simple to read. But she has often said, um, and clarified the word dying. She says it's when the body's breathing and function stop. But up until that moment, that very last breath, before that very last breath, you're living. And when you take that last breath, that is when, in our culture, we consider it death. So the months and weeks before death, the body's approaching death, but it's not actually dying. And this is where you get your number of your interventions with medicine, and all the healthcare providers involved, all the assistants. But days and hours are really active dying. And death turns into a very communal event. Before that, it is also can be very community centered, but you have medical interventions or you have a support system in there. But when the body's actively dying, there's really no room for medicine any longer. And it's really about comfort care. And the end of life doula does this really well. And he or she can support the families with this. And we're really companioning people through this journey. And we're really knowledgeable about the dying process, so we can support the family and explain these things to the family, what it looks like, and kind of address the fears that they may have and support them and neutralize things and also create a space that's more sacred. What the dying person wants, what the family may want to support the dying person with, what does their environment look like? No matter where they're dying, by the way. It doesn't, we all like to die at home, but there's still a significant percentage that die in hospitals or long-term care facilities or skilled nursing. But you can still create environments for that as well. So the next slide, please. Yeah, the silver tsunami. Well, what is a tsunami anyway? It gives us kind of an imagery of a population that's swelling, and it has far-reaching complications because of this swelling. And COVID has not helped us. It really changed a lot in our lives. And 76.4 million, I believe it is right now, are baby boomers, and I'm in this category right now. And a large number of baby boomers are reaching retirement age. It's also been said that by 2060, many millennials will be approaching retirement. So tsunami means a swelling of any given population. And what this has done basically is it's impacted people. COVID brought about a lot of isolation with people. They had to lock themselves into their homes, and some people who were alone, they found it even more disturbing and isolative. And even in nursing homes and other long-term care facilities, people started to feel very isolated. But it's not that we weren't feeling some of that isolation before, but it made things what do I want to say? It exacerbated it, made it worse. And so on top of that, the silver tsunami has brought about something else, a severe caregiver shortage. Now, there's two kinds of caregivers. There's the informal caregiver, which is usually the families and the spouse or the partner and the family members. And I have, in some of my classes I've taught in groups, I have had them come forward and they are stressed to the max. They are looking for support. They don't know how to handle all the changes that are going on with their loved one. And then you got the formal caregivers who are paid care providers. And they are caring for people in their homes or in a certain setting like daycare, residential setting, facility, long-term care. And what do they have? Well, they have burnout from everything. And COVID did not help that. It made it worse. They have little or no professional resources and they have a big financial strain and they have lack of support. And our nation hasn't, they're trying right now to address this, even to the point where they're thinking of paying people that are informal caregivers. But I don't think we've even scratched the surface yet on the totality of this problem, which really is mind-boggling at best. And just so you know, informal or formal caregivers, they especially both give their hearts. The formal caregivers are trained more for this, but the ones that I have run into and talked with, they really are giving as much as they can give. And some of them are at the point where they're leaving, just like in nursing and even in medicine, because people are totally crushed by our system. So there's a lot of help to be done in these areas. And doulas do figure into this picture, as you'll find out as we go along. So let's turn to the next slide and the role. Okay, I said this is a non-medical uh, supportive system with end-of-life doulas. I'm a registered nurse. In some ways, this is a downside of things because I remove my hat, but at the same time, I'm an end-of-life doula and I give non-medical care. So what does that mean? That means I don't make nursing assessments. I don't do nursing interventions. It doesn't matter what your licensure is or your background, but basically, I don't give treatments. I don't do medication. So you might say to yourself, well, what do you do in this case? Well, I think of one client I had, and it was out of state. She was out of state. It was in Arizona. Her father was dying. He was had COVID, and they put him into a medically induced coma. And she was recommended. I was recommended. She was recommended to contact me as an end of life doula to help her through this process while her father was in an ICU. And the first thing she did, because she knew I had a nursing background, was she sent me all his lab results. Well, I did look at him, and he was really in bad shape. Just from looking at his pulmonary values and everything else, I thought he really isn't going to make it. I'm not the one who says that, though. That's not my call. And so when I got back to her, I didn't even mention what she had sent me because that's not my role. So I explained what my role was. And then I asked her this question. I said, "Do you have you had a lot of interaction with the team, the medical team?" And she said, "Oh yeah." And I said, "What did they say?" And they said, "Oh, he's in really bad shape." And so I didn't even have to touch the lab values, but I kind of swerved her, empowered her to continue those dialogues with the team. And then I helped her work with her father and a sister who lived in New York that we needed to get into communication. I helped her with that process. And the sister, what this client did is she took a picture of her father to prepare her sister with a face to face because the sister hadn't really spoken from her heart everything she wanted to say to her dad, even though he couldn't. Well, there's a big question. Hearing is the last to go, even in a coma. But she had done many, many good things in that ICU. She had put in family pictures and had soft music playing. She did all the things that doulas encourage families to do and empower people to do. So we're non-medical. We give holistic care because we look at the whole person. We look at the emotional part of them, the spiritual, the physical, and we help them with all the options of care that can be done. We help them with pre-planning and the dying process and the after-death care. We're advocates for them, and we're advocates in ways, there's several ways to be an advocate. And one way is by giving them the right resources and putting them on the right track. So you have a lot of contacts in your community that you can refer people to if they have questions about certain treatments or certain approaches to the death and dying. And as a doula, I may not, it's not for me to judge anybody's decision making or inquiry. It's for me to give them the information so they can make up their own minds. And hopefully you're dealing with the dying individual before the 11th hour. That's what we prefer. But sometimes we get into the 11th hour, and that's when they enter into our care. And creating a peaceful process through the whole thing really is about compassion and listening very deeply. But it's also about helping the family and the dying person. What do they want? What do they want in their environment? Who do they want there? Who shouldn't be there? Because there's a lot of things that we don't know unless we ask them and find out, what is peaceful. Do they need somebody from the church if that is their belief system, or do they need people to come in and do readings for them? What do they need and what do they want? But whatever it is creating a very beautiful, sacred environment. And I think I can turn this over to Bonnie.
Thank you, Colleen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the qualities and skills of a doula. Colleen did a really nice job of talking a little bit about the role of the doula. But if you're thinking about this for yourself to become a doula, these are some of the traits that would be important for you to have or to develop. And so, as we've said in the beginning, most people do this because they're responding to a need. And some people have already taken care of someone who's died, and maybe it didn't go well, and so they want to make it better for other people. But whatever is the driving force, it's good to kind of figure out what that is. We talk about deep listening, and it really means getting into I kind of call it getting into other people's business, but really making listening real intently and not letting other things kind of enter into it other than focusing on this person. Presence, you need to be willing to be there for the person, whether you're vigiling or meeting with them just for an hour or two a day, but being fully present with them to help them meet the goals of care that they have established and make sure their wishes and desires are met. Certainly, compassion is a part of this, and we have to have compassion for the people that we care for. And then learning what the resources are in the community where your client lives can be really helpful, and or other resources that you can give for them. So we encourage you to establish some resources in your area. We certainly can. We give a lot of resources out to our students so that they have a toolbox to start with. But as you get into this work more and more, you will find resources and you will become more resourceful depending on the situation that you're dealing with. Next slide, please. So this is what our class covers. These are the main topics, and I'm not going to go through all these with you. I just want you to have them up there so you can kind of read through them. But as we put this program together, several of us took more than one doula training program, myself included. And we felt that some of the content that I did in one of my programs felt a little light, and I felt like there should be more to it. So the next program I took was a 6-month program, and it was a wonderful program, but it was way too intense, way too much material. And so what we did when we put our program together was we wanted to put together a program that would teach you what you needed to know to do this work. And then our goal is to add on to that through webinars and coaching. And so we give you, these are the things that we feel people need to know about to get started. And then you're going to hear more about this, but you'll get included in your membership as some time with us too. And I'm going to leave that for the slide that comes up on. So next slide, please. So our training is practical. It's very practical, very immersive, even though it's online. If you're doing the online course, It's the same course that we teach in person, and we've found some creative ways. That's part of being a doula, you become creative. We found creative ways to ensure that you have some experiential time as well. Um, Most of us have an educator background. I, for example, have been teaching for 15 years at the university level, both at 3 different universities, Western, UW, and Northwest University down in Kirkland. So we had the skill to put together an educational program that that makes sense to us, and it's made sense to all the people we've trained so far. We really haven't had any complaints about the way our program has been set up. We also do a lot to do community development, and because we want this, as we say, death is a community event. And so we work to support that. So we develop a community of doulas. So if you do take our program and you come on with us, you're going to meet a lot of other doulas that have
Sorry about
gone
that.
in our program. And then we support the learning. It's a supportive learning environment. We find that our cohorts really get to know each other and work well together. So next slide, I think I'm turning it over to Maureen.
That's me. So thanks, Bonnie. So some of the benefits, Bonnie's already said that we do bring community connection together. That's really, really important to us, that you are not in this alone, that we're there to support you and you're there to support one another. And we do that by supporting you through monthly coaching with trainers. We do that the first Tuesday of every month. We have monthly training webinars, how Bonnie was saying what's you need to know to be a doula, and we also supplement that with what is really good to know. So we are always learning, and we're always wanting to continue to educate you and help you grow in your knowledge, and it helps us grow in our knowledge too. We have a monthly death cafe that we put on the second Friday of every month. Those are free. We've had people from all over the world actually attend. We've been doing those since I want to say this September of 2020, and it's just going strong every month. We have a private Facebook group for our graduates to interact with one another in. People can ask questions in there, they can put up ideas, but it's a way to connect and stay connected. We will be offering, you'll have a year's membership, and a part of that is you get those monthly training webinars as part of your membership for that first year. And then after that, it'll be at a discounted rate. And if we do extra training, sometimes we'll bring in extra training on top of the monthly webinars, and the members always will get a discount. You can get one-on-one mentoring with any of us in the collective. That's at an additional fee, but it will also be a discounted fee. And we also look out for doula opportunities. Someone just reached out, last week, looking for a doula for their parent, and so we like to put those out to our community. If we know there's a good fit or someone lives in the area with us all, well, we are all in the Seattle area. You guys can be from anywhere, but if someone's up near, let's say, Mukilteo or Everett in the Seattle community, we can guide them to a doula up there. Or if they're in Arizona, we have doulas that have been trained in the Phoenix area, people from different parts of the country. So we're always on the lookout to help support and grow our doulas businesses. So the next steps. To join our upcoming 8-week training, register today. We would love to have you join us. Our training begins next Wednesday, January 24th. It's for 8 weeks, every Wednesday for 8 weeks from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. We are signing up today with a discount code to make it $799 instead of our regular $999. Now, I've been away on vacation at a family wedding, and somehow this code is not working. So if you're interested, you can email us and we'll honor that code. So that's really it. We're going to stop sharing now, and we're here to answer questions. So bring your questions to us. We're looking forward to being a source for you.